What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our 2023 schedule preview and projected record series. The Oregon Ducks are up next. Before we get to 2023, let's look back at 2022. Here was the schedule from 2022. Oregon going 10-3. You look back at these games. Now, they never had a chance against Georgia, but Washington, a game that they had a great opportunity to win. I still look back at that fourth down decision to go for it without Bo Nix in the game. If he had not gotten hurt, then maybe they get that. That's a game they really should have won. Oregon State's a game that they had in control. You go back, you win those two games. Oregon has a chance to win the Pac-12 championship, go to the college football playoff. Could have been a much different year, but just looking at this schedule, they had the big non-conference game against Georgia. Thought BYU was going to be a bigger game. They wound up taking care of business there. BYU wasn't as good as we thought. That one really wasn't all that close. But they got really hot in the middle of the season and just lost a couple of games there late. But a schedule that saw them going on the road to face Washington State, Arizona, Cal, Colorado, and Oregon State. So they had 5 road games in the Pac-12. That should mean, I believe, that they will have 5 home games this year. We'll get to that schedule. Let's first look at who they play in the non-conference. It'll be Portland State on the road at Texas Tech, and then Hawaii. So they do have a Power 5 opponent in Texas Tech. I've seen the Red Raiders in a few of the way too early top 25 rankings, so I think there is a perception that Texas Tech is going to be pretty good this year, so that could be a challenge there. And then, of course, Portland State, Hawaii should be easy wins for the Ducks in those two. So let's go to the entire schedule now and go week by week. They will open up with Portland State, and then Texas Tech, week 2. Again, I think most people are going to assume that's probably an easy win for Oregon, but Texas Tech could be a challenge. Playing on the road, that could be a really good game there. And then Hawaii on September 16th, that'll be a home game, and they'll play their 3 non-conference games right out of the gate. Then it's on to Pac-12 conference play. They will open things up with Colorado, which will be a very interesting matchup there. Of course, Deion Sanders taking over. Don't really know for sure what to expect from this Colorado team. Could be a challenge for Oregon, or maybe not. Maybe it takes them some time, but they will be playing at home, so you do like the Ducks' chances in that one. And then they'll close out the month of September with a road game against Stanford. Stanford, they're in rebuild mode right now, so you definitely like Oregon's chances in that game. And I really like where their bye week is. It's after playing Stanford, and it's between these back-to-back road games before playing Washington. That is a really good spot, in my opinion, for this bye week. They'll be playing them pretty early in the year, again, October 14th. I feel like they usually play a little bit later, but I guess that's about right. So October 14th on the road at Washington, their first really, really big test, probably a top 10 matchup, and that's going to be a really big game, really huge game there in the Pac-12. Oregon at Washington. Oregon looking for some revenge. After that, they'll play Washington State at home. Watch out. This is going to be a trap game right in between Washington and Utah, in between 2 very tough road games. Washington State could be a tough one. Then it's Utah on October the 28th. They'll play the Utes on the road in what also should be a really tough game. So Utah, Washington on the road in the month of October. Going to be 2 really tough ones. Then it's on to the month of November. They'll play California on the 4th at home. Then they get USC at home on November 11th. Finish things out with a road game against Arizona State and a home game against Oregon State. So yes, they will have 5 home games in the Pac-12. They'll play 4 road games, and then you add in Texas Tech. They'll have you add that one in there, and they'll have 5 road games overall. But really, the first part of the schedule, the first 5 games, not too tough. Then you get into some tougher games, but they don't have anything that's super tough back-to-back. It is spread out a little bit. Washington, then Washington State, then Utah. They get a kind of a break with Cal, then USC, a little bit of a break with Arizona State, and then Oregon State. So not any real tough, super tough back-to-backs here on the schedule. But some very tough games. Washington and Utah both on the road, and USC. I kind of look at the big 4 in the Pac-12 as Oregon, Utah, USC, and Washington coming into 2023. And so they're going to play the other 3 teams there, and they'll play 2 of those 3 games on the road. So that will be tough. They do avoid UCLA. I guess that's some good news. But again, a schedule that it's pretty tough, but not horrible. when you look at how the games are spread out, the Ducks will have to take care of business. They'll have to win at home against USC, and then you've got to go on the road and knock off either Washington or Utah if they're going to have a chance to make the college football playoff in 2023. But everything else on the schedule, very manageable. So this does set up to give Oregon a chance to have a really big year in 2023. Here were some of the projections from 2022. Of course, Oregon finished 9-3 in the regular season. Our projection actually had them at 7-5, mostly just because I projected a lot of the teams in their schedule to be better than they were. You know, we thought BYU was a top 25 team last year. I thought Stanford was potentially going to be a surprise team. So the schedule wound up not being quite as tough as I thought it was going to be. But I personally was not. I mean, I was high on Oregon. I had them at 10-2, had them winning the Pac-12 championship. And, you know, they were really close. I don't think people realize how close this Oregon team was. You know, a Bo Nix injury, some decisions to go for it on fourth down really cost them those two conference games. And, you know, they were very close to being 11-1 last year. I don't think people will give them enough credit. The FBI, they had them at 8.6 and 4.1. Over-under was at 8.5. So it seemed like the projection for Oregon was really to go 8-4 or 9-3. Our projection just, again, overvalued a lot of their opponents, and that's why you see it as low as it was at 7-5. So let's see what it looks like for 2023. Again, here is the schedule. This is the scale that we'll be using. Games that stay in the white, those are your 50-50 games, games where I think the spread will be less than a touchdown. Red and green, those are games where I think the spread will be 20 or more. You got your 20-29, 71-80% games. Those are games where I think the spread will be double digits. And then the yellow and purple, those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points, kind of in that range. So we go through here and we start with the easy wins. I think you can give them Portland State and Hawaii. Both of those games should be pretty easy for the Ducks. Don't really see them having any problems in either one of those matchups. So those are really the only two where I would say that those are pretty much guaranteed wins. Again, Portland State and Hawaii. Next, we go to the games that are in the blue. So these are games where I think the spread will be 10 to 19 points in that range. And we've got Colorado, Stanford, Washington State, Cal, and Arizona State. Now, Colorado's tricky because nobody has any idea how good they're going to be. I think they're going to be improved, but as bad as they were last year, I still think Oregon, especially playing at home, should be at least a 10-point favorite in that game. Stanford, they're in complete rebuild mode. Washington State, because it's at home, I think you can put that one as about a 10 to 13 point spread for Oregon. Cal is at home, shouldn't be. You know, they should be favored by a lot in that one. And then Arizona State, it is on the road. I know Oregon has had some problems playing on the road in Arizona, but as bad as they were last year, I think Oregon will be favored by at least 10 in that one as well. So we're going to count these games as wins. They're not guaranteed wins, but games that Oregon should win. We'll just put it that way. And that leaves 5 games left. So we go now to the games that I think Oregon will be favored by about a touchdown. And that's Texas Tech and Oregon State. Texas Tech, they actually, I think, could be pretty good in the Big 12 next year. I've seen them in some top 25s for some way too early polls. So don't sleep on that game. Playing on the road, because of that, I think Oregon's only going to be favored by about 6. And then Oregon State, the rivalry game, of course. I do have Oregon on a tier just above Oregon State. And because of that game also being at home, that's why I think Oregon will be favored by, again, 6 or 7 points. If that game was on the road, I would probably call that a 50-50 game. But playing at home, I think Oregon should be the better team. But again, you never know in these rivalry games. And these games are definitely not games that are guaranteed wins. These are games that still could go either way, but I think there will be a clear favorite. And I think Oregon will be favored in both of those games. And that leaves Washington, Utah, and USC. This is the schedule right here. These are your 50-50 games. Games that could go either way. All of them are going to be tough. Washington and Utah on the road. I think Oregon will probably be a slight underdog in those games, 3 or 4 points. And then USC playing at home, they'll probably be favored by about a field goal there. But again, these games are all games that could go either way. So you look at the schedule here. Again, we're going to count the blue and green games as wins. We use 65% for the purple. We use 50% for the games in white. We average it all out to get the projection. And for Oregon, Their projection is 10-2. So it's between 9-3 and 10-2. But if you round it up, it does come out to 10-2. So that's the projection for Oregon. In these 5 games, the projection would have them going 3-2 because, a couple of them, they are going to be, I think, clear favorites. If you flip those around, if you put all those games as 50-50 games, then the spread will be like right in the middle of 9-3 and 10-2. But because I think they will be favored in those games, I'm going to say the projection here for Oregon, 10-2. That's what it comes out to be for the Oregon Ducks in 2023.